So in today, or actually it's nighttime here, so in tonight's video, I'm going to be looking at the RTX 2060 Super 8GB GPU, and I'm going to be coupling it with the i7-4790, and I'm going to be seeing if this combination is good for PC gaming in 2023, because I already know that the RTX 2060 Super 8GB is actually a really good card, especially for 1080p gaming, and its value is extremely good. But what I'm more concerned about is the i7-4790. On paper, this CPU looks great. It's got the i7 moniker there. It's priced at, I got this one for $30 US. In fact, I'll show you guys all the prices that I paid for these parts, where the whole PC is going to come in roughly off the top of my head around $250 US, which makes it great for a PC with 8GB of VRAM, RTX GPU, and an i7, and also RGB case. This just looks fantastic on paper. However, is it going to have that performance to match that glorious spec sheet? And so that's what I'm concerned about with this i7-4790, where it's a 4-core 8-threaded CPU. In fact, it's got a lot going for it. It still carries those relevant AVX2 instruction set. And in fact, with this CPU in the past, I've disabled these Spectre and Meltdown security updates, which I don't think they really do anything for the single end user except drop your performance down. I'm going to disable those and see the performance before and after, as well as there's a new one out called Downfall. So there's another one. There's another update, another security update that's coming to take more FPS and take more value away from your wallet. Who could have ever thought? Surprise, corporations, they always want you to go buy their new stuff. Anyhow, we are going to click our fingers and there is going to be a PC magically appearing on this desk, and we're going to get on to tuning this thing and seeing how it goes with these PC games in 2023, right after today's video sponsor.
Never pay full price for Windows 10 or 11 again. With today's video sponsor, SCD Keys, you can get activated for as little as $15 using that coupon BFTYC. Links in the description below.
So it's now the next morning and we've set this PC up. We've done a little bit of configuration here. And what I'm going to show you guys is with these old Intel CPUs, especially the i7-4790s, you want to get a program called Inspector, but there's also something else you want to do. So you just run this as administrator, and you'll see here the system, we've turned those off. So we've disabled Spectre and Meltdown protection, but there was also another one here if you go to your regedit settings. And there's another one called Downfall. And so this one here, you have to go, and I'll actually just show you on the screen where you need to go on your regedit, but it's in Session Manager and HKey Local Machine in a thing called Memory Management. And then we go to this Features Setting Override, and we have to put this value in here. Well, it's actually something different. It's like 0x2000 or 200,000. I just copied it from the website in the hexadecimal and clicked OK. And essentially then you've got to restart your machine and then open up Inspector again, because doing that will actually enable the Spectre and Meltdown again. So then you got to redo that. So you have to restart your computer 2 times usually. So, or you can just do Downfall first and then Spectre and Meltdown after that. But these 3 security patches, I mean, they recommend you keep them on. I've never heard of someone getting hacked, especially an individual budget gamer, getting compromised from having these security updates off. But what I have heard, and I know this firsthand, is the performance with having these updates on versus off is actually pretty big on these older CPUs. And especially if you want a smoother experience as opposed to a stuttery one, I'd recommend turning them off. And so let's finally get into the games here. We've got 3 games, and we're going to start off with CS2 because it's the latest game. A lot of people want to play it, and we're going to see the performance of that. And moving into CS2, we've got high settings here, just using the recommended settings from the get-go. And playing on Dust 2, which I think is the most popular map in this game, the FPS is actually really good, considering its high settings and the FPS is not stuttering too in this game. So the i7-4790 will actually give you a really good experience in this title, as well as the RTX 2060 Super, which still has a bit of leg room, as you can see with the percentages there. So overall, really impressed with the experience coming out of CS2 on this budget hardware. Though going on to Starfield here, this is just an absolute mess of a game, especially for budget gamers. We've got 1080p here, and it
it's going on, we're trying it just on the lower settings, and the GPU, this is a 2060 Super, and we're getting around 40 average FPS, and it's like 2060 Super is actually a really decent card for 1080p gaming, as we've seen with the CS2 new title. We're going to see with the next title, the 2060 Super, I'm sure is going to be fine, but what we're seeing in Starfield is just it literally can't get a 60 FPS experience. And now, funny thing is, people will be like, oh, well, the i7-4790, that's too old, Brian, to run this game. But we can see with the percentages here, the 4790 is actually doing really well. It's still got a bit of headroom, and I think it's definitely capable of getting 60 FPS, which if we put the render scale down, right down to 50% with FSR2, we can get around 60 FPS. But the problem is the game just looks horrid with 50% FSR2. And even if we use 70%, we're getting an extra 7 FPS, and it just looks way worse than just running it native. So actually, if you're playing Starfield on a budget, I honestly just recommend the cinematic experience. So the final title we got up here is Hogwarts Legacy, and we've sort of decided to do a bit of a custom blend between high and low settings. And for me personally, I find this is really good, where if I show you an example on the screen right now, for instance, just having ultra settings versus these settings, we're getting roughly almost 50% more FPS. And for me, the visual difference for that 50% FPS is clearly not worth it with going, say, ultra settings. So you can get a lot out of this RTX 2060 Super and i7-4790 if you tune the games and tune the hardware. Now, also speaking of tuning hardware, idle power consumption on the desktop is around 65 to 70 watts. And in this game, it's going up to around 260 watts full load on the system. Now, if we undervolt the GPU, which I've got a whole tutorial on how to do that here at Tech City, you can just drop the power consumption 40 watts and the FPS virtually stays the same. So that'll keep your GPU just running cooler and longer. But speaking of temperatures here, we got the Asus Strix model in here, and even on default settings, the temperatures are extremely good. As you can see here, the GPU is pretty much over 90% on these ultra settings, and it's getting up to around 63 degrees in a 25C environment. But actually the CPU is surprisingly doing decent on the i7-4790 for a stock Intel cooler. I was thinking I would have had to have changed out the cooler for something a lot bigger, say for instance a snowman or something like that, even if it's the low profile one. That is doing a decent job of keeping it under 70 degrees, especially while we're gaming. I'm happy with that. As you guys know, anything over 80 degrees for CPU temps, I don't like that. And so this is keeping it well under 80 degrees, even running a stress test. But keep in mind, it is a B85 motherboard. It's a cheap motherboard, so the motherboard in ways is keeping the CPU speeds down. The maximum I'm seeing this thing go up to is 3.8 gigahertz all cores, which I'm pretty sure off the top of my head, the i7-4790 can do higher speeds than that. But in this case, it's working absolutely fine. Everything's running really well, and that can only mean one thing, and that means going over to conclusion. So what we saw with those results is this gaming PC right here, the i7-4790 and the RTX 2060 Super together is going to be a great combination for 1080p gaming. I'm actually surprised that the i7, the 4th gen, still does this well in a lot of games. Keep in mind, I would heavily recommend taking those security updates off, and I do put quotations there because I am of a different school of camp here, where I think that these mitigations honestly were put in place just to drop performance of these older CPUs so you could go out and buy a new one. That's my personal feelings with it. I haven't changed that tone, especially since when they were released years and years ago. I haven't heard of one individual, at least playing games, who's been hacked via these methods. And I think the complexity to hack someone with one of these methods, they're not going to waste their time on a budget gamer. They're going after someone with big pockets, and so that's just my thinking there. And at the same time, everyone's just getting automatically affected by these updates because they're pretty much forced on a lot of these hardware parts. But anyway, rant aside there, let's get back to this gear right here. Setting this thing up, breeze. The budget parts, I'll list them in the description below, because the RTX 2060 Super, the prices that I paid, I mean, I did buy it a few months ago and I'm using it in a budget build now, but the prices on eBay, they're coming in under 150 bucks for this GPU. It's, in my opinion, one of the best value GPUs to get right now. The performance is really good still. The i7-4790, or if you want to get the 4770, they're going to be very similar.
the performance there is actually really good for 30 bucks. You can pick the CPU up off eBay. I'm seeing it as low as $25, which is even cheaper than what I paid for it. So it's a really good time right now to build a used PC. And if you're wondering if this i7 4th gen can still get up and go, the answer is definitely yes. I wouldn't go coupling it with like an RTX 2080 Super or an RTX 3080 or anything like that. But if you got a sort of balanced mindset with what your expectations are from a gaming PC, especially on a budget, then this combo right here is going to do the job absolutely fine. And storage as well, 1 terabyte storage, that's really cheap. Actually, people are telling me how cheap storage is all around me. Like, Brian, you'd get a 1 terabyte SSD in your builds now because it's just so cheap. And I do agree with that. So links will be in the description below, guys, if you want to check out building something similar to this. Anyway, guys, do let us know in the comment section below what you think of this budget rig as well as the aesthetics. I thought this case was looking really good for the money, and the motherboard, it's cheap, but it does the job, especially with a non-K CPU. Anyhow, love reading your thoughts and opinions. As always, just like this question of the day here, which comes from Alan Totti, and they ask, hey Brian, when are you going to buy a GTR in Japan? I know you want it. So I was in Japan before. I will be going back there in the future sometime. I'm just not certain as to when yet, and I'll be on like a tourist visa rather than living there. But in terms of buying a GTR in Japan, I wouldn't want to buy one over there, nor would I want to buy one in Australia. The prices of GTRs, like the 32, the 33, the 34, especially the 34, the prices are through the roof on these cars. Back when like I was a teenager, these cars were just like relative to what they are now, they were dirt cheap back then. And sure, the GTR's fast, but it's not comfortable in my opinion. And so if you're gonna spend that much money on a car, I would much rather buy something new with much better interior, much better features, faster, especially stock versus stock. So my actually interest, even though I love the 32 GTR, I think it's a really nice looking car. I just think the prices that they're going for nowadays is just, sure, they got the collector appeal and they got that JDM appeal. I just personally am not really interested in looking at the prices and thinking what I'm actually going to get for that money is definitely not worth it in my opinion. Anyhow, hope that answers that question, and I'll catch you guys in another tech video very soon. If you stayed this far and you're enjoying that Tech Yes content, you know what to do. Hit that like button, hit that sub button, ring the bell to get the content as soon as it drops, and I'll catch you in another tech video very soon. But also, we're going to flip this PC really soon. So this is actually a great value hit if you're looking to flip PCs too. We've got the RTX in there, we've got the i7, 8 gigabytes of VRAM on the GPU. This one will actually should make a couple of $100 profit. So that's the reason why I'm building this thing up, but also want to show you guys, hey, the performance is actually really good for the money. So catch you on the next one. Peace out for now. Bye.